What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American here today to react and learn about Europe's plan for a high speed train network. So, here in the United States, our public transportation is terrible. I mean, it is so bad. To be honest, it's basically non existent. And the idea of taking a train somewhere, that's not even an option here in the US. But from what I understand, in Europe, you guys have these amazing trains that let you travel lots of places quickly and without needing a car, which sounds amazing, and that would be very, very important for a lot of Americans to have that. Like, a lot of Americans that don't have access to a car or don't want to drive their car for 12 hours straight. And, it's kind of ridiculous how far behind we are here in the US in terms of like trains and rail systems. So today, I want to check out this video by Verst and learn more about Europe's plan for building this massive high speed rail network. So let's take a look.
This is the Berlin-Palermo Railway Axis, a planned 2,200 kilometer long high-speed rail line between Berlin and Palermo.
What? I mean, look at this. That is so freaking cool. Like, and wow, over 2,000 kilometers. I'm not exactly sure how far a kilometer is, but I think like this is at least is this like 1,000 miles or something like that? Anyway, it's really far and really impressive. And here in the US, the troubling thing is we're not even talking about building stuff like this. You guys are already like making all these plans, it looks like, to build this giant thing, and we don't even like talk about this. It's not. So it just feels like it's never going to happen. I don't know. I'm a bit jealous already.
Designated as one of the main transport links connecting Central and Southern Europe, tracking through Germany, Austria, and Italy. It will be priority project number 1 of 30 from the newly updated Trans-European Transport Network Plan, which is part of a grand vision by the EU Green Deal to make all scheduled travel of 500 kilometers or less carbon neutral by 2030 and reduce transport emissions by 90% by 2050.
Whoa! And on top of it, you guys are like being really good for the environment. Like that's actually really cool as well. On top of all this, I mean, wow. I don't know how long this video was made. Like this information like might be a few years old. So maybe some of this stuff has already been built, or I don't know, but he was saying there's like 30 different, look at this list. Like 30 different railways? Yeah, look at this. Railway, motorway, high-speed line. What? It's pretty amazing.
Neutral by 2030 and reduce transport emissions by 90% by 2050. The idea is that if Europe can create a network of modern, super-fast and comfortable trains going between every major city and member states, like this, then it can replace planes for these short to medium distance travel times.
Whoa. Replace planes? That's pretty ambitious. Yeah, I mean, that would be so convenient here in the United States, not having to take an airplane. Because that is the main mode of transportation in the US when you're traveling, like, I don't know. We've kind of got used to, in the US, we have like the word road trip, which means you're going to travel to another state or across the country in your car, and maybe you're going to drive to Florida or something 10 hours away. And we've gotten used to it. A lot of Americans are used to it. If you have a car and you want to go somewhere in the US, like traveling for like 7, 8, 9, 10 hours in your car. But there's a lot of Americans who also don't want to do that, and so we take planes. Very short distances, like the plane ride is like an hour or two, which is also kind of a waste in a different way. It just feels like the US is absolutely perfect for like trains or these cool high-speed rail things. Like that'd be cool. And just seeing the map here and that Europe is like actually implementing this stuff. I really love this, to be honest, and I don't know why we aren't doing this.
Times. Trains, particularly electric passenger trains, are obviously the way to go for this.
Electric? They're electric? I didn't even know. Ah! Ah! Oh my god. This is making me crazy because it's so good. And we could do this. We just don't. That's what's making me a little crazy, I think. Electric trains. I haven't even thought about that. That's how far behind we are. Yes, of course, electric trains. So it's even like good for the environment.
Pollution. Even accounting for use of fossil fuels in power generation, trains average about a fifth of the greenhouse gas emissions per passenger kilometer of airplanes and less than half that of buses. Take, for example, Lisbon to Madrid, separated by 624 kilometers. A flight would emit 109 kilograms of CO2, while rail only 23. That's an insane 474% difference.
I thought this was just to save time, like save money and time. I didn't even know this was also really good for the planet. That's a bonus.
Yet somehow there's no direct train between the two adjacent capitals. So while a plane would just take an hour and 30 minutes of travel, the 3 connecting train journeys would take around 9 hours. This is where the Madrid-Extremadura high-speed rail line will come in. Linking Madrid and Badajoz, a city close to the Portuguese border, it will eventually be expanded to connect to Lisbon by 2030 via connections to Alvas and Evora. A Madrid-Lisbon.
Well, okay, now I understand, because I thought Europe had a lot of trains. Like, already you guys have a lot of trains. Way more than the United States. We have, like, almost none. And we never even think about them. The few, like, I think we actually have, like, 3 or 4. Maybe. I don't know. I don't even know where they are. Nobody uses them. Whereas in Europe, you guys have all these train networks. They're just not necessarily connected in the most efficient way. So you can go places like all over Europe with train only, by the sound of it. It's just not very efficient or quick. And that's where this plan is coming into effect, where Europe is upgrading a lot of the like city to city travel times and the really important like routes with these direct high-speed trains that go like super fast, right? And are super technologically advanced, right? This is I'm excited for Europe. Like I wish I could be this excited for the United States. Like if we could do this.
The current 9-hour train ride to just 2.5, which would actually be shorter than flying when you take into account all the driving and waiting that comes with airports.
At the end of the day, if you guys do this, he said, the high-speed train would be a bit faster than the airplane, which is amazing.
We've seen this pan out with other lines already. The Eurostar carried nearly 80% of traffic from London to Brussels and Paris in 2019, while flights between Milan and Rome fell by more than half after a high-speed rail line opened in 2007. While this is the main goal, replacing planes, it's also just about connecting Europe overall by train and giving more options for travel, regardless. For example, with the main line for Europe, it'll be going from Paris to Bratislava. That's a distance of 1,338 kilometers.
This is amazing. Like, I know for people in Europe, maybe this is like not that crazy or exciting, but I gotta say, as an American, seeing all these connections and how the whole of Europe is connected with all these, like, it's amazing to me. That is so cool.
which doesn't really make sense by train, but it means it'll be connecting big cities like Strasbourg, Stuttgart, Munich, and Vienna along the way, crucial for maintaining being an alternative to planes for any journey whatsoever. It's the same with the Rail Baltica, which is priority project number 27. The 870-kilometer line will go from Warsaw all the way up to Tallinn, linking the capital cities of Baltic nations Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania to the rest of Europe by the
So smart. So the 30 action items in this plan mostly seem to be focused on linking up a lot of the major cities to each other with high-speed rail. So it's a very intentional, very well thought out plan to emphasize connecting maybe the most important or most traveled routes first.
the way of the Polish capital by 2030. This is exactly what the trans-European rail networks intend to do: connect Europe. The better European cities are connected by rail, the easier it is to move away from high-polluting transport modes such as aviation and cars. But even further, people need to be more incentivized to use rail.
Amazing. I'm just shaking my head it's amazing what Europe is doing, and we're not. Europe is made up of a bunch of different countries, different governments, different languages, different cultures, and you guys are still way better connected than the United States. We're just one country, and we're not connected remotely like this with all this train networks. And yeah, like I said, you have to fly or take a car, and that is not efficient, and it's also not good for the environment. And what's even worse is Americans don't even really care. This isn't even something we think about, which is so stupid.
17 of the 20 most frequented air routes in Europe are for distances less than 700 kilometers. In theory, almost all of these journeys could be shifted to rail. Now, don't get me wrong, the EU already has over 200,000 kilometers of rail infrastructure across the bloc, and many of its countries have some of the best rail systems in the world. But it's actually not enough right now. I mean, only 11,000 kilometers of these tracks facilitate high-speed rail, and as a result, it isn't used as much as it could be, which I know sounds crazy to say about European countries, considering how far ahead they are in rail ridership than almost everywhere else. But while the number of passenger kilometers traveled on the EU's railways rose from 340 billion in 2001 to 413 billion in 2018, rail's overall share of journeys has barely moved.
So this video is emphasizing a couple different things. Rail, or trains, might become more common than taking an airplane, which would be nice, because these are so good. And Europe already has a good train infrastructure, by the sound of it, but some of the tracks don't have the capability of having high-speed train on it. So for this plan to work, there's a lot of updating that would have to happen, by the sound of it.
Increasing from 6.7% to 7%. In the same period, air travel's share rose from 6.1% to 9.6% of all European journeys by passenger kilometers. Even in the most train-happy countries such as Austria and the Netherlands, for example, the figures are just 13% and 11%. Now, there's a few reasons for this, but I believe most of them stem from this. High-speed rail links haven't truly been prioritized in all of Europe, let alone cross-border ones. In 2018, the European Commission found that out of 365 cross-border rail links that had once existed, 149 were non-operational. You see, rail is the form of transport that requires possibly the most coordination, and on a continent split into dozens of countries, there's bound to be tons of problems.
I mean, I'm sure it's difficult, I'm sure there's a lot of problems, but I just gotta say, it's amazing that you guys are even doing this, that you've done this good of a job. You are so far ahead of the United States. Like I said, even though Europe is made of all these different countries, this is, yes, sure, I'm sure it has problems, but it's incredibly impressive anyway.
So, what's happening now, besides all these multi-year projects currently being built and targets being set? Well, even if the EU is decades off from reaching its targets, they're still addressing the problems without having a fully connected high-speed rail system being ready. A growing number of countries have plans to phase out short-haul flights that can be completed by train in a given time frame. And France has recently become the world's first major economy to do so, enacting a nationwide ban on short-haul domestic flights on routes where train journeys of 2.5 hours or less exist as an alternative.
Whoa, that's a statement. Wow. I didn't know about that. So parts of Europe are actually so serious about sort of making the swap over to trains or high speed trains that some of the airplane routes that are very short um, aren't even going to be available anymore. You're going to have to take the train, which, to be honest, like as long as it's like affordable and fast and like good for the environment, I mean, I suppose that's a good thing. That's really cool.
Well, kinda. As a first step, flights will be prohibited on just 3 routes from Paris's secondary airport: Orly to Bordeaux, Lyon, and
Wow.
Nantes. And as rail improves, so will the amount of banned flights. There is
Banned flights so that people take the train. This is so. I mean, I just can't relate to this at all. I can't remember the last time I took a train. I think when I was a kid, when I was a child, and I was visiting New York, like the subway, like the underground, like metro rail, um, like, so, yeah, for a lot of Americans, like, we have either never taken a train in our entire life or like once or twice when we're in like a big like New York or something where they have some railways. Other than that, like I don't even know what the experience is really like.
also been a rise of the air rail connections, meaning instead of a traveler making the usual dash from flight to flight, a small but growing number connect to or from a train for one leg of their journeys.
Oh wow.
It's again sort of a band-aid on the problem, but it's something. That's the thing though. No one policy is going to solve the whole problem. You get 0.5% here, 0.1% there. But when you do things bit by bit, the result adds up. That is the way for the EU
Wow.
reaching its climate goals and finally changing from no more than a patchwork of national systems to a transport united Europe. Thank
That is unbelievable. This is amazing. Wow. High speed rail system. So cool. Amazing that Europe is doing this. Now I understand like a little better how incredibly difficult this is. This is not going to happen quickly or it sounds like I think they said like by hopefully by 2040 or something like that. But anyway, that's the fact that Europe is like taking the initiative to even do this and that you guys are working out all the problems and swapping out the lines and figuring out what needs priority and that you guys care about this. Something that's better for the environment, better for the planet, better for people, faster in a lot of cases. It's just, I don't know, it's really cool and something we just don't know about or talk about here in the U.S. So I think we could learn a lot from this, and so I'm glad I took a look at this. This was really really cool what you guys are doing. So anyway, if you enjoyed this, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment with your thoughts on Europe's plan for this high-speed rail system all over the continent. And if you're interested in more videos like this, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching and see you next time.